Yo, I have an announcement to make. In 46 days, I'll be taking a trip with another YouTube channel called Everyday Driver, and we're taking their pilgrimage trip to go to the Nürburgring and to Spa in Belgium to drive on those two racetracks. So today I'm going to go over what the plan is for this trip, talk to you about what it means to do this, and this is actually going to be a series of videos because I've gotten to go and practice these tracks in a $30,000, $25,000 racing sim, and so I'll be able to judge that and see if it actually helped me to execute my plan to drive fairly quickly on these tracks, even though I know the first time you're at any track, it's not going to be that impressive. But we'll see. What's the result of practicing in a sim for hours? Does it actually help you to know the track or not? And then the plan is in 5 weeks to go and film as much of the trip as I possibly can and document the whole thing and show you what it's like to make this kind of a trip that's a once-in-a-lifetime bucket list trip. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be once in a lifetime for you. There's people who've done these trips multiple times with these guys from Everyday Driver, and so you could go back every year, multiple times a year. But for somebody like me, where this is like the pinnacle of driving on a racetrack, this is the dream come true, the ultimate bucket list, amazing track driving trip, I may not ever get to do it again. So this series is going to document this whole trip, and at the end I'll be able to honestly tell you, was it worth it or not? And I'm happy to reveal all the costs afterwards too. So right off the bat, if your first impulse was like, when's the trip? I'm going. Unfortunately, it's already sold out for this year. There's a limited number of seats that they can kind of organize for and bring every year. And so for 2024, the trip is already sold out. So you're going to have to wait until sort of early spring 2025 before another trip opens, to my understanding. Otherwise, you can check their website here and actually see if there's anything more coming up. I know they also did just acquire another driving company called Hooked on Driving, and so I think they're planning to have more Nürburgring trips through either Everyday Driving or through Hooked on Driving. So we definitely have the potential to jump on one of these trips whenever they come around. And if you wanted to go, I mean, you could just go grab a plane ticket, fly over to Germany, and go do your thing. For me, the reason why I wanted to have kind of a turnkey trip like this is A, to spend some more time with people that also like driving, because I'm not bringing anybody with my family or friends or anybody else. I'm going alone on this trip. So it'll be nice to be around other people and share the experience with them. 2, I have no idea where any of this stuff is, what companies to use, where to stay, any of the organizational side of it. Obviously, you could figure it out, but this way, literally, we land in the airport on Germany on day 1, and everything until we get back to the airport to fly out is handled for us. Meals, lodging, transportation, rental cars, the whole 9 yards. And whenever I built a spreadsheet to try and price this out and see if it would be cheaper for me to put all that together myself or just pay for this, it was like almost exactly the same money, if not potentially cheaper, to go with a pre-organized trip. So that's why I decided to go with them. So the official trip dates are June 13th through the 17th, but of course, because I'm in America, I've got to fly out the day before. So I'm actually leaving June 12th because it's like 20 hours of travel to get all the way over there. And then the first day that we arrive, we're flying into the Frankfurt airport, and we have very little planned. And the guys from Everyday Driver basically said, that's intentional. You're going to be really jet lagged. We've got to make sure that everybody gets there, gets to the right place. We're going to all drive from the airport to Nürburgring, which is a city where the Nürburgring is. We're going to get set up at our hotel, and we're going to have a welcome dinner sort of together. They said sometimes people are so tired that they skip the dinner altogether because they're already asleep. But my plan is to sleep as much as I can possibly on the plane so that whenever I arrive there, I'm awake and I'm alert and I'm ready to go. So day 1, no driving from us personally. We'll just be driving in like rental vans to get to the place where we're going to stay. But day 2 is a really, really awesome, exciting day. I know I'm going there for these racetracks and the experience of being on them, but day 2 might end up being like the best day overall, because what we get to do is a scenic road tour around these little small villages and towns in Germany, and it just sounds like the dream European like weekend road day. And I also love the idea of this before the racetrack day, because we're going to get to drive the cars that we're renting to go and do the racetracks, and we get to take them on the road. And so it's going to be like an acclimation day, a practice day to kind of go, all right, let's get the feel of this car before we take it out on the track. And I just think that's wise, if nothing else. But I love doing that here, like locally or basically anywhere. Let's go find a little bit of a twisty road. Let's find a little cafe to eat lunch at. And I haven't got to do that kind of thing in years. And the fact that we get to do it now in Germany just sounds like an absurd, picturesque, amazing day. And this is one day where we're actually going to get to swap around cars too. So the way the structure is with the rental cars, we're all renting from a company called RSR, and they rent cars for the specific use of driving on the Nürburgring and on Spa, but we also get to use them here on the street. And this day we could trade, like if there's a guy with a Porsche Cayman or a 911 or something else, maybe he wants to drive the M240i that I'm driving, we could just swap keys and for an hour or two trade and just try out something else. So I'm planning to try and do that if I can. We'll see if anybody wants to give up the keys to their car, but we'll find out in Germany. And since I just mentioned this car, I may as well show it to you. This little beauty is the RSR M240i. As you can see, we've got most of a full interior, but they've added a roll bar, 4-point harnesses, full Sparco seats for both the driver and passenger, so at least we're going to be held in securely when we're driving on the track. The rest of the interior looks pretty stock, as you can see from this photo. And on the outside, it looks pretty aggressive with all these like decals and labels and words on it. They've got to represent their own company, so I get that. I'm not against it. But you might notice it's got kind of an aggressive stance. Like the wheel and tire setup looks pretty interesting. This car's modified. They say this is our specially tuned version of the M240i, and their goal is to improve the track ability of the car in every way. So it makes the corner sharper, more focused, and more responsive, which I don't know if I need all those things my first time on these racetracks, but I'll take it. And there they go. They acknowledge my concern right there. However, this does make the car less forgiving and less progressive, making it more suitable for experienced drivers, not as suitable for inexperienced track drivers. So it's good for intermediate and experienced drivers, probably not great for somebody who's never had track experience. And they say right there, only available in dry weather conditions. That's like my biggest fear, honestly, for this whole trip is if it rains, because I'm like, it's hard enough to drive on a track anyway, let alone if it rains. And we'll see in a minute, the kind of tires that are on this car are not conducive to rain whatsoever. So I'm guessing that's probably why they say this. So now let's jump into the modifications and see what this car's built on. It's got 340 horsepower, 500 Newton meters of torque. Odds are even these numbers are underrated because everything from BMW seems to be underrated these days. When it's a turbocharged engine, they produce more than they claim. Plus this one has an ECU reflash, so there's a chance it's even more power than that. 1,500 kilograms. Pretty standard weight. I don't think they've really taken a significant amount of weight out of this car. So that's what, like 3,300 pounds, something like that. Of course, a front engined 3-liter straight six rear wheel drive, left hand drive. It is an automatic transmission, which initially I was like, that's such a bummer because I want to have this sort of like idyllic, heavenly experience of, the ultimate trip, the ultimate track driving. Can I go to the ring and spa and just have this like perfect day, if you will? And an automatic gets in the way of my idea of a perfect day. But then I took that egotistical version of me and I shoved him in the closet and I said, you shut up. Because the realistic version of this is we're going to be a little terrified. There's going to be a lot of things to pay attention to: lap traffic, weather, learning a new car, learning these new tracks themselves, even with some simulator time. And so this guy who thinks he needs to go really fast and have a perfect manual transmission experience can shut up because I need to focus on driving. And so the fact that this is an automatic means, hey, if worse comes to worse and we're really overwhelmed, we just put it in drive and we survive. You survive by putting it in drive. It's like the opposite of the Netflix title for the F1 show. And if we're really caning the thing and we're ready to go faster and faster, I'm sure there's paddle shifters. We can be pretty aggressive with it. But overall, I'm okay with it having an automatic because I know it'll make things easier for us. And then here you can see largely why the car is not great for rainy conditions. Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires. These are basically like a couple of steps away from a full race slick. I personally think that a Sport Cup 2 is probably not a wise tire to even have on a street car. So the fact that it's that aggressive means that we're going to have to be careful driving this thing around on those public road days. Like in my experience, having an R compound tire means that whenever it's cold and you haven't been pushing it and you haven't got tire temperatures up, it's a little sketchy. I mean, those tires are noticeably hard and slippery compared to your street tire, which are meant to operate at normal temperatures. Not so much with these. We will have to be really intentional with them. As we saw in the photos, 4-point harnesses and as basic insurance, but this excess insurance, from my understanding, means that we are liable for damages up to 35,000 euro in case we throw the car into a fence. So if we're at the Nürburgring, we have an incident with somebody and we total the car, then I'm personally liable for 35 grand. Then they take it after that. That's obviously not a part of the plan. And then the road insurance is 5 grand. But now let's talk about more fun things like modifications. So this thing isn't just some bone stock car like a rental car in America. This is actually modified pretty darn nicely for the track. It's got KW Club Sport 2-way, including the top mount coilovers. So these are really nice high dollar coilovers. I had KW variant 1s on my car back in the day and they were great. So these are like 3 levels above that. It's got legitimate BBS wheels, Pilot Sport Cup 2s, 235s in the front, 245s in the rear. So not a huge tire in the rear, honestly. For the amount of torque this car has, that thing is going to be pretty squirrely whenever you first take off, I'll bet. It's got an ECU reflash by Simon Motorsport, Sparco seats, Schroth harnesses. It's got upgraded brake pads and brake lines, which is great. And it's got a half cage and a transmission cooler. So this thing is going to be a pretty potent machine when it comes down to it. So that's what I'm going to be spending most of the day driving on the Scenic Road Tour, which is day number 2. We're going to stop and have lunch in some cute little picturesque German town. It's called Bernkastel. And in that same day, we drive and arrive in Belgium because Spa is in Belgium and it's like a 90-minute drive over there. Then we have dinner together. And then day 3 is driving at Spa. The incredible, epic, amazing F1 track. Just to accentuate how excited I am about this trip, look at this poster I have. This is Spa. This is the most famous corner at Spa, maybe in the world. It's called Eau Rouge. And this is a picture taken by Larry Chen, I think in 2011 or 12. I bought his print. He's autographed it right here. He mailed it to me and I framed it up here in my studio room. So I see this literally every day I come in and go do some work. And this has been a dream of mine for a long time. The fact that I get to actually go here and drive on this track and hit this corner is just ridiculous to me. If you've been curious to know what the other 2 tracks are that I have up here on these little track maps, this is COTA, Circuit of the Americas in Austin, and this is Laguna Seca, which is in California. These are 2 other tracks that are kind of on the bucket list for me that I want to do someday. But out of the 3 tracks hung up on the wall, get to do one of them this year, so that's really exciting. And let's be honest, the Nürburgring is on everyone's wall, on everyone's to-do list, and so it's not that it's not deserving of being on the wall, it's that, like, it's the token dream track. It's got to be there. For us this day, it's going to be a private track day. It's not the same thing as a lot of the days at the Nürburgring. I'm guessing that means it's going to be pretty darn low traffic. And what they told us in a conference call a couple weeks ago is for these kind of track days, there's not like a run group. Like beginners go out here and you have 20 minutes, and then intermediates go out, and then advanced guys go out, because that's typically how like a track day is set up in America. They kind of break it out by how good of a driver you are, and maybe there's a race group that goes out, and so a lot of the day you're just sitting around waiting. That's not the way this happens. Apparently it's like, here's the track, it's open, go drive it. As much as you want, as much as you can take, go do it. And so Spa is a massive track. I mean, 3-4 minute lap time is going to be common for us here. And so they say that we're going to expect to get at least 15 laps, even with traffic. And I imagine we might even just opt into more or less depending on how we're feeling in the day. You know, driving a big, giant elevation changing circuit like this at the kind of speeds this one has, we might get tired after 15 or 20 laps and decide that we're done. But the awesome thing is that I think for the first hour of the day, we've got an instructor included with us, and so they'll be able to show us the racing line. They'll be able to keep us safe and make sure that we're not doing any kind of foolishness. And then for the rest of the day after that, if we want to, we could drive alone. We could opt into having another passenger from the actual pilgrimage trip come with us. Or if you wanted to, you could also access the instructor and have them come back and show you more pointers as the day goes on. So this is going to be an absolutely epic day. And Spa is famous for having such a big layout. I mean, obviously the Nürburgring's bigger, but Spa is so big that you might have rain on one part of it and it could be sunny and dry on another part. So I'm expecting this to be really challenging and just surreal to get to drive this epic track. Then that same day, we drive back to Nürburg. And the reason for that is day 4, we drive the ring. We get to drive the actual Nürburgring Nordschleife. We've got the track not to ourselves because it's a Touristenfahrten day, which means it's a tourist driving day. And strictly speaking, the Nordschleife is a toll road. You pay the 30 euro or whatever it is, and you can go out there in your minivan with the kids in the back playing games or doing whatever and actually drive on this racetrack, which for the day is really more of a toll road. But for those of us car nerds, it's a true racetrack. So there's going to be a really diverse smattering of vehicles and drivers out there. There's going to be some people in box vans who have no idea what they're doing, going really slow. Then there's going to be us who are kind of in the middle, where we've got fairly legitimate cars, and some of us have some track experience, so we're going to be setting kind of medium speed laps. Then there's going to be some people out there who bring out their GT2 RS MR edition, setting crazy lap times. And so initially when I heard that, I was really intimidated because I thought, well, this is the worst in terms of diversity. You've got people who have no idea what they're doing, being reckless. How do I, as a driver, keep safe despite that? But they pointed out the rules around a tourist day like this is that you have to pass on the left of the track. You treat it like it's a German road. Oh, and that reminds me, on that second day where we drive around and get to do like the little day tour around German towns and stuff, part of that is sometime on the Autobahn too. So that's going to be choice. But because the ring is a normal road, if you're passing somebody, you got to do it on the left, which means if we're overwhelmed, if there's lots of faster cars behind us, we know that the easy thing to do is get over to the right side of the track and just stay over there. You don't have to necessarily worry about the racing line and maintaining his lap speed behind you and whatever else. You just go over to the right. They have to pass you on the left anyway. Easy peasy. This day also includes an instructor for the morning time, which is awesome because you'll definitely want one for this track. It is crazy and fast and narrow and daunting. And their estimate of our time on the track that day will allow us to do at least 7 laps of the Nürburgring. So that's going to be a complete like pinch me moment. I can't believe this is really happening. And then after we're done and exhausted and our endorphins have overflowed for the day, we're going to get to have dinner at the famous Pistenklaus restaurant, which is there, and it's kind of automotive themed, and it's like the place you go if you're the ring tourist. And then day 5, as soon as it started, it'll be over. We're going to have breakfast. We're going to get driven back to Frankfurt Airport, and then we're taking off. We're out of there. So the setup, if you're curious, is that you pay $8,500 for the time that you land in one airport, all the cars and driving and everything else, and you get driven back to the airport again, and it's back to you being responsible for your own flight and food and stuff like that. So in theory, you just pay for a flight and everything else is all inclusive. If you wanted to pay more, you could upgrade the car. So I have a spreadsheet that I'm not going to reveal because there's people's names in there and stuff like that that's private, but the average person seems to be driving sort of a Cayman GTS level car, which is an upgrade from the base level car. The base car that comes for the cheapest price is this Hyundai i30N RSR edition. So think about this as sort of the Hyundai version of the Fiesta ST. We don't actually get this car in America, but all the reviews and videos I've seen of people driving it say that it's actually fantastic. Plus, it's no real slouch. I mean, it's going to be a lot lighter weight than the car is that I'm driving. It's only 1,610 kilos. Well, it's actually more weight than the one I'm driving, I think. I think mine was 1,500, right? Anyway, this car is 280 horsepower. It's front-wheel drive, which can be a little bit easier for a beginner on track. And it's got Pilot Sport tires instead of Pilot Cup tires, so it's sort of a more entry-level car. For whatever reason, I needed to be changed to a different car. I'm guessing there was other people going on the trip that had to have a beginner-level car because they didn't have any track experience. And I tried to add it up the other day. I think I have somewhere between 10 and 15 hours of actual on-track driving experience, like hours lapping, and that's across the last 10 years or so. And I wouldn't count, video games or simulator time or anything like that towards actual like lap knowledge, but having 10 or 15 hours of actual time on racetracks does put me one level above the beginner driver. There is one guy who paid for the really incredible upgrade, and he's driving a GT4 RS, and that car's going to be nuts. But this guy has done 10 plus of these trips, so he knows the tracks really well. He's a much better driver than all of us, and so he was willing to pay for that upgrade. They say over the course of the 2 days that it should add up to basically 4 hours of concentrated drive time on each track, and so I'm going to significantly increase the amount of time I've spent on racetracks just from this one trip. It is very driving focused. And I'm still a little bit in shock that this is even happening, and so thankful for the everyday driver guys that they're doing this, because I actually heard about this trip over a year ago. It was like spring of 2023 when they were on the Smoking Tire podcast. I listened to that. I immediately emailed them and was like, what? This is a thing? You guys do this? I've got to get in on it. And for that year, it was already too late. It was sold out. And so I was too late on the draw there. But I've been following this trip for the last year to make sure that I was one of the first people that signed up. And even then this year, I was on a waiting list for a little while because I was too slow to sign up. So this thing fills up super, super fast. If you do want to do it in future years, you've got to be Johnny on the spot. Like the day it opens, sign up, do the thing. But stay tuned to the rest of the series to see the whole adventure unfold. The next video I'll post in this series is trying out that $25,000, $30,000 race simulator, specifically on these 2 tracks and specifically with a car that was built to simulate this car. So the one that I'm planning on renting, the guy renting the simulator to me was nice enough to go and find that car and have it there and ready for me to practice with. So I tailored it as much as possible to this real trip. And so that video will come out next, and I'll tell you the experience of what it was like driving that sim. If it still felt like a video game, if it felt more like driving, if I think it might be helpful to me, then I'll let you know in that video. Till then, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye. My knee's a little caught under the wheel. Hopefully it doesn't happen over there.
I'm sorry, sir.
My knee's a little caught under the wheel in the carousel.
Oh, yeah. We can raise it a little bit for you.
Yeah.